excited by this experiment because one of the things that I'm personally a little bit frustrated by is that for all that I love about StreamYard, and I do love it, you know, you can have 5 guests, you can stream to 5 sites. That's unbeatable. And it's really affordable, like $25.
Well, it can be more than 5 sites. That's the cool part, right?
Well, now with with Restream, if we can get this to work.
There we go. Okay.
We're live?
Yeah. Well, it's live on YouTube. Yeah. Can you, you're this is fun.
Yeah.
And it's online on Facebook, personal profile, YouTube, Facebook, Digital with Doyle Bueller, Periscope, Doyle Bueller, Facebook, Transformation Think Tank. So it's all there. It's all, we're broadcasting on 5 channels right now. That's sweet. And it opens up to YouTube live page as well. I figured that one out as well, that your live profile is actually your channel /live.
Okay.
So if you want to send somebody direct to a live, that's all you have to do is just add the /live, and then they'll go there specifically to that link. So it's actually kind of cool. So
why that's powerful with YouTube, like for me, I live in Melbourne and my internet's not bad by comparison to some people, but it still takes me like an hour to load a video.
It does, yeah.
And I'm thinking, if we can get YouTube live. I mean, we're live now, and there it is. It's on. There's no loading. That's got to be good. That's got to be an advantage, hasn't it?
Absolutely. The only thing it doesn't have is we don't have comments.
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah.
So when you go live on Zoom, you don't actually see what people are saying. Now, technically, we might be able to see those in Restream. I'll see if I might have to fiddle around with that, but I can't see any yet. Look, we are live. So if anybody is watching us, Keith Keller and myself, Doyle Bueller, we're just doing a quick test with Zoom and Restream.io to see how we can actually connect the two together, because that seems to be an unbeatable combination, because you have the flexibility of having like 100 people. Well, you can get bigger plans, but 100 people on the actual Zoom session, and then you can actually broadcast to each of your social media channels. So I wanted to test that out, because we're going to be doing this on part 10 on Thursday, right?
Yeah. Well, the reason why this is very exciting is because StreamYard can have 5 sites and 5 people. 5 people and the person running it. So 6
as guests, you mean? You can Zoom directly from Restream. Not Zoom. You can go live.
With the Zoom, you can have up to 100 people. Not that you would have 100 people, but you might have 10 or 20. And I just there's the power of numbers, and as we start to explore this, like we've never done this before. This is why we're doing this test, because the show is on Thursday, and we've had this experience where we've run the test live on the show. And even though that's fun, it failed, and the show's not very good. So we're running this experiment with Zoom running through Restream. So HD video, up to 100 guests, up to 30 sites. I mean, if we can get this to work, this is an unbeatable combination, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Because you do have that advantage with Zoom with being able to schedule them. And as you saw, like I just send you a link, you register, and away you go. You come into the event pretty quickly and pretty easy. So it's kind of self-contained. That was one of the key criteria that we had earlier. It's like, can you actually schedule an event? And in most cases, you can't. You can with Facebook, you can with Ecamm, you can with StreamYard, where you basically reserve that spot, but that's just for Facebook, right?
It is a missing link on a lot of the sites, isn't it?
There are a huge missing link, and I think we can overcome some of those with this as well. So the only disadvantage is we don't have any of these sort of bells and whistles. Like we can't put overlays on Zoom. We can't, put a title block, or we can't. I mean, it does have your name there, and it should show your name in the session, but we can't sort of add any extra information. But that's again another level deep too, because we're able to actually use something like Ecamm as a virtual cam, and then we can port it into Zoom, which then ports it into Restream. So
you can do that with Minicam as well, which is
Minicam,
$29 a year. Yeah, it has lower thirds, and what I want the background blur. I just love that feature. Since we did the Skype show with Ecamm,
that's true.
I just love that background blur idea.
That looks so good on Skype. Yeah.
You can't do that on Zoom. You can't do that on StreamYard.
You can do screen. You can do the green screen though.
You can do the green screen.
Yeah, on Zoom, which is good. You can choose a virtual background. You don't get that blur feature, but I don't have a green screen because those I find a little bit. Oh, there we go. Hey, you can see a picture. Bill's my whiteboard. Can you see that?
How
Look,
did
I'm
you
going
do
in
that?
space.
How did you do that?
Honestly, it just picked up the single color in the background, and then it projects that image onto it.
Okay.
Yeah. So normally, if I had a green screen behind me, it would show that whole image, but because I don't, it's picking up the closest thing.
Well, look, the reason why I'm really inspired by this is because, I think we're about 13 weeks into lockdown. And some of us are a little bit further away from getting out of it than we would really hope for. So we want to pull apart all these tools to make it feel like that you're sort of getting the real experience. Today I heard this really cool phrase. This is really cool. Who are you going to Zoom call? Because the cast of Ghostbusters did a big Zoom meeting yesterday.
Oh, did they? Oh, okay, cool.
Who are you going to Zoom call? Ghostbusters. But you can't go and you can't meet them in the city.
Yeah.
So now we're starting not only to have these sort of really cool verbs we're now starting to have movie stars talking about Zoom as if it's like every day.
Yeah. No, it's pretty cool to see. So, and that's sort of this is the entry point for, I mean, this show was designed for businesses too. You and I are both fascinated by the technology and everybody else that uses it. But the focus here is how can a business use it for personal branding or for, business branding or whatever the case may be. How can you actually use it?
How do you think that plays out now that we're into our last show this week? How do you think it plays out? What have you learned?
Yeah, well, I mean, you look at all the amazing people that we've spoken with around the world over the last 9 episodes, and it's just been phenomenal as we kind of tackle and chip away at it too. So that, and I think that's why we went into this experiment too, was to see exactly what's important and what's not, and what can work and what can't. And we were having a quick discussion beforehand, and you were saying, I mean, we're going through all this stuff, and it does take a lot of time, and it does take a lot of effort, and you have to have sort of other people around the world to be able to see, does this actually work for you, and is it the same scenario? So I think we've been able to chip away, and as we build that beautiful work of art type thing, that statue, that bust, we can see that, oh, these are the pieces that you need. You can start right now. You can use this, and this, and away you go. This is how you have to organize your show. This is how you can sort of put these pieces together, because there is a lot of randomness to it, and I think that's the problem with it. There hasn't been, I mean, there's been obviously some take up in it, but I think people are still scared of, and not scared, but, just fearful of, well, what do I do? And what do I, what button do I push and that sort of thing?
Because a lot of moving parts, isn't there?
There is
a lot of moving parts.
Yeah. Because when I've been doing lives for 4 years, 4 years. And even today, when you do something that you haven't done in a while, it's like, what does that button do? Or you forget to push it, and in this case with Zoom, I have to make you a co-host, Keith, and if I forget to do that on episode number 10, part 10, then I'll be clicking and allow everybody to enter as well. So it's been
what you just said there is very important, because one of the things that I think we've been able to do very well, because we work well together and there's two of us, is that because there are so many moving parts, I would imagine if you tried to do this on your own, it would just collapse. Because I've seen you trying to navigate the panel, and I can quickly go off and morph and just get maybe one of the guests to chat while you're trying to work out the tech to get for instance, the comment, like that. Just that idea of getting the comments out of Facebook and onto the screen. Well, that takes a button, and what button is it, and where is it, and how do I do it? You've got to work that out. Yeah. And so while you're working that out, I can see your brain ticking. I can then bounce off and maybe get the guests to have a bit of a talk. So I would imagine running a show by yourself and having all the technical bells and whistles would almost be impossible.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you think?
Sorry, the last part cut out. I just lost my audio.
I'm just thinking that can you imagine running this type of show on your own with all the bells and whistles, or would it just be too hard?
Look, I have run like shows where we've had like 3-4 guests on previously. And I'm kind of running the back end. And I did have a co-host, but he wasn't quite as involved as you. So it is a challenge, but I think it can be done, but it's very helpful. It sort of creates that continuity, because when I have to pause when something's not working, or I have to check something out, if you or your partner can then continue the conversation, that's so helpful.
Well, I'll give you an example that I'm doing, which maybe people don't even realize, is that I have got my mouse set up, out of view, and I have the tweet rescheduled. This is a very good example of the moving parts. With Periscope, you cannot pre-schedule Periscope links, which really pisses me off, because that means that 1 minute past the hour, I have to take the link while we're live, and I have to look at the camera and talk. And with my left hand, I have to sort of do a little bit of a shuffle and send it to people in the tweet. And I'm thinking, I'm doing three things there. I'm looking at the camera, I'm trying to talk, and I'm trying to get my hands to coordinate so that I can tweet stuff. Right? Yeah. But if you take that load by you introduce the guest, or you maybe introduce the topic, that gives me a chance to get my mojo. It gives me a chance to get my bearings and go, okay, now I'm settled. Now I'm right.
Yeah.
And I think the two-person live stream idea is just an unbeatable combination, because first of all, you're bouncing off each other. Second of all, you're sharing the load. And, it's not only the tech on the day, it's getting the guests. It's getting the guests to turn up.
There's a lot of work.
It's getting the guests to retweet. It's getting the guests to send their bio, or, maybe send something ahead of time. And it's a very dynamic process. And I don't think most people would realize how hard it is, but they possibly sense that it's hard, and that's why they don't want to do it.
Yeah, you're right. So there's that fear of the tech and the fear of, where do I start? Right. I mean, because that's the biggest challenge is where do you actually start? I don't know. What was your experience, Keith, of getting started in live streaming?
Yep. So, the advantage here for me is that Anne-Marie Cross and Anne-Marie's been on the show 3 times. Anne-Marie and I both live in Melbourne, and we ran a podcast show, which are very similar format. And so we ran a show once a week with guests. That's where you start, decide on the format. We wanted guests, and we wanted it to be weekly. So then once we decided that, all we had to do was a division of labour. I went and got the guests, and we've had amazing guests, and it's my job to chase them up. Because you're a bit of a technical genius, I've left that side to you. I don't know how to set up Zoom and Restream, and I don't have a Mac. I don't know how to use Ecamm. So I do that. You do that part. So once you decide on the format, then you have this division of labour. Okay, I'll get the guests. Can you run the tech? No worries. That's all working. Now that we're on the show, we have to decide what side. This particular show is an experiment. It's very unique in the sense that every show is different, because every show is a different piece of tech. But we've decided that StreamYard, super simple site to use, super affordable, really, really great use case. 5 sites, 5 guests, $25 a month or $50 a month, even if you want the top level product. Robust because it works, it doesn't break. Nothing worse than being halfway through a live stream and you just hang there. We've all had that happen. So there's a lot of moving parts, but first of all, start with format, start with division of labour, start with the site. Would you say that's how you did it, or what was your thought process?
Well, honestly, I personally was a little bit scared of the tech too, like just getting started as well. And there were a lot of channels. This was again back in 2017, the end of 2016, beginning of 2017. There were some platforms that were coming out. And I just decided, you know what, I'm going to pick a platform and I'm going to go with it. And I kind of learned how to use it. I did do it solo because it does sort of take a lot of time to learn. So I needed to learn how to use it. And then decided after that, okay, I'll bring in a few people and sort of get comfortable with that. And then, bring one guest and then do one of my own and do another guest and then one of my own. And then the next thing I knew, like I had a show with a fellow from Canada and we had guests from throughout the US, Europe and Asia. And we had like typically 4 to 5 people on the show at the same time. So it's kind of evolved from that single step. But I think that was the hardest, was just, you know what, I've got to do this. I need to do this. This is one of the things that I really enjoy, talking with people and from around the world and seeing what we can do and how we can do it and how we can solve problems. And so I just committed, I got to do this. This is what I'm going to do. I'll pick a platform and then just start. Right.
Why did you pick Be Live? Why did you choose that one? Is it one that your mates used, or it just seemed to make sense?
It seemed to make sense. Yeah. I think that I'd looked at, I can't remember honestly the other few that I'd been sort of watching, but it just seemed to make sense. I might have joined the group on Facebook, and it's like, okay, this seems pretty easy enough to start. I hadn't heard of StreamYard, honestly. I don't even know if it was around or when it came about, but I didn't hear about StreamYard until we actually started this show. Actually, no, when LinkedIn went live, you had to get a StreamYard subscription to be able to broadcast. So that's probably when I heard about a year ago, but that was the one. I just, whatever, I'm not sure how exactly I chose it. I just said that I got to pick one, I'm going to do it, and away I went. So one thing that's interesting, Keith, is you can actually change the camera in Zoom, right? I can change to my FaceTime camera or my regular camera.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But it also broadcasts from Restream. Like it broadcasts in, it says right now 1280 by 720 is how it broadcasts from a Restream itself. So interesting. I haven't figured out yet how to do comments through Restream. So that's something that we might be able to.
That's an important part, but let's bring it back. Tell me how you were able to, because this is a really good piece of tech that people will want to know. How did you connect Zoom and Restream together, and how hard was that?
It was quite hard because, first of all, I didn't even know if there was a chance that it was even possible. So I just went into the Zoom backend and looked at all the different parameters. And there is this thing called Rtmp that basically allows third-party software to connect with, a broadcaster type thing. So if you've got that capability within the platform, for example, Restream, you can then connect that information to other.
Is that what that phrase means?
Rtmp. So not sure exactly what that stands for.
And Restream is an Rtmp.
It has that capability. So I take the information from Restream and then I plug it into Zoom. And the problem with Zoom is that, again, there's so many different levels. There's, instant meetings where you just click a button and it starts a meeting. So you have to set that Rtmp settings for that. Or it's, a pre-scheduled meeting, or it's a webinar, and there's a few other different categories as well. So you have to kind of see, okay, well, which one am I creating?
Let's do a show on Rtmps. First of all, we've got to work out what that even means.
That's how you, exactly. But I got to let you get your laugh in there, Keith. But yeah, that's part of the show, is that this is the way that you actually take it to that next level. So we're kind of creating this diagram, and hopefully we'll be able to show it on Thursday about what pieces are sort of at the beginning and what are more advanced. And the Rtmp allows you to connect with basically studio quality type broadcast software and applications and that sort of thing. So it really sort of opens up a whole other world. But again, there is a level of complexity. So if you're looking at just producing a show, don't even worry about it, right? Yeah. We kind of wanted to see what we can actually do and how we can do it, and then advance you through that as you sort of build up the skills and capabilities. Because one of the things that's super, super important, it's part of our live streaming ABC, is content, right? You have to be able to create that content, audience building blocks and content. And if you don't have good content, it doesn't matter if you're, spend $1,000 on a microphone. And
it absolutely doesn't.
Or $20,000 on a webcam setup that broadcasts, right?
Yeah, I'm very, very, very proud of the show. The finale is on this week, 11 o'clock on Thursday, Melbourne time, 9 a.m. in Perth, 9 p.m. Eastern on the Wednesday. And, for every week for 10 weeks, we've basically taken the challenge of trying a new site and often learning on the fly, because there isn't enough time to learn it all before you go. There's so many things to do. So we've tried it. We've noticed here with Zoom we can't add comments. We'll learn how to do that as we go. I'm a bit annoyed about that, but we'll learn it. But as each site gets better, we'll go, look at how this compares to StreamYard, for instance. For me, I love editing, and it really does. It's a bit of a thorn in my side that with StreamYard it's only 720p, and when I edit it looks fuzzy. That really pisses me off. So we're trying this now, is Zoom going to restream 1080p. And as you said, it's streaming in 1280p.
Yeah.
Our webcams can't even support that. We don't even have the tech to support that. But, you know, we now have stuff that's almost a little bit like TV. That's pretty exciting. It's pretty exciting, especially when you think of the three people along the side. Often television shows that have guests have the three people it's in sequence. I've often seen that on TV. And if we can achieve that, then suddenly people are able to run events in an environment where we might not be able to travel for a very long time. You know, we have to be realistic. I've been asked to travel all over the world. I personally don't want to spend 27 hours on a plane. So I've said no to several events well before this. But, you know, now we're at a point where events on the other side of the world are just not available to us anymore. Yeah. We might have been inclined to go and make a holiday out of it, but we can't. When Australia is almost coming out of it. New Zealand's out of it, but several countries are still embedded inside it. And this idea of being under lockdown. So these technologies are going to become increasingly important because we all have great knowledge to share, and separate to being in the same room, which we can't change, you know, and we'll never, ever replace that. We can still get at least the knowledge, and we can still have some chats. Like I haven't met you in Perth. I've been to Perth 3 times before we met, but we've never met in person. We're still having these great chats, and we're still sharing what we know.
Yeah. No, that's for sure. And we've had 9 amazing episodes. Do you want to quickly go through them?
Yeah. So
number 1, we had basically getting started building that platform. That was just you and myself, and we did that on BeLive to Facebook, which was pretty easy because I've been using BeLive for quite some time.
And tell me what your synopsis is now that you've tried everything. What's your take on BeLive looking back on it?
Yeah, it's honestly, it's a little bit more advanced. It's not for sort of an entry level, which something like Zoom is or StreamYard is, where it's just you basically set it up and you click a button and you go. BeLive has BeLive has a lot of buttons.
Okay.
And there's a lot of complexity to that.
And only now that you've tried different sites do you know that.
Yeah, exactly. So you can see the difference. Like it's quite dramatic in terms of the different platforms that you use and how you can use them and what it sort of takes to get ready to use them as well.
But now that you've tried them all, how would you rate BeLive as out of 5?
I would say it's probably like a 4. It has a fair bit of capabilities to it. It's not perfect. It can crash, and there's some stability issues from time to time. At least there was. But that was a cool thing too, right, Keith? Is that we developed our 20-point criteria that actually helps measure each of these criteria side by side.
As we went along.
Yeah. So we have that. So we're going to present that. Well, a summary of it, probably not. We don't want to go into too much detail of that, but we'll have that available for a download, though.
Yeah, it's a great little
yeah. Number 2, we went with, we had our guest from Anne-Marie Cross from Melbourne, your hometown, and we talked about StreamYard. She introduced us to StreamYard, which was fantastic, right?
Yeah. Well, that was, Anne-Marie ran that show, and she is an expert at StreamYard. And it was very interesting because you had used BeLive for such a long time. And then you discovered StreamYard as a functioning thing as opposed to I haven't heard of it. And suddenly from 4 guests, you can have 5 guests. And suddenly from 2 sites, you can have 5 sites. So that must have been a real eye-opener for you. How did that feel? How do those two sites compare?
Yeah, well, StreamYard seemed to be fairly, again, pretty easy. Like even the screens to get in, it's like, here's start a show, or, here's your old shows. And then you kind of go in and map it out piece by piece. So yeah, from a simplicity perspective, it was pretty easy. Honestly, visually, it's a lot quicker. And in terms of overlays and setups, it was quite nice. You just click the button and it moves the images around. So you don't have to kind of worry about positioning and that sort of thing. So that was quite a bit easier. Something like BeLive, it seems that they're just trying to maybe do too many things at once, or it's not sort of that beginner, that starter type platform. It's more, okay, you've done some lives, you might need some more capabilities, here's what you can use for that. So Number 3, we took on Hanimura from Canada, who runs Repurpose.io, which was a pretty cool piece of software, and that basically allows you to repurpose your content. And we did that on Zoom. That was our first show on Zoom to Facebook.
That show was really interesting because we focused on Zoom as a streaming platform. Like what we're doing here is we're streaming via Restream. We've connected to this show here. This recap.
Exactly. So there's an extra step there.
But in part 3, we talked about, is Zoom okay as a streaming platform compared to Restream? And I'm not sure it is. I'm not sure I would advocate using Zoom by itself. But now that we've added this piece of tech, geez, we've got a lot to add and a lot to really. There's a lot of extra goodies here, isn't there?
There is, yeah. Zoom by itself, you can only go live to one channel at a time. So it's Facebook, it's YouTube, or it's a custom Rtmp service as well that you can use. So you can expand that, but you need to do some digging into that. So if you're happy with Zoom and Facebook, or Zoom and YouTube, then go for it. The other thing that I noticed is that in the actual broadcast version, Zoom does have their logo in the corner somewhere around here.
Yeah,
which is kind of a little bit annoying. Like, okay, I get that point, but you can't even pay to get it removed. Like a lot of the services, if you're paying for a professional program, then they'll take away their brand.
Oh, that is true. Yeah, there's the watermark. That annoys you. Yeah.
Well, it does, because this isn't a Zoom show, right? I don't work for Zoom. I'm using Zoom, but they're using it as marketing. So that, from my perspective, I think that's my real estate, not Zoom's.
And you would pay to have that removed if the option was there.
Well, look, StreamYard is not free. I mean, it is, but it's very limited. BeLive's not free. Or Game, they have a freemium type model. But as soon as you get into the paid categories, you should be able to remove that logo. Because again, I don't work for Zoom. I just use it as a tool. It's like, if I'm using a hammer, they don't all have to have Bunnings on it, kind of.
Yeah. Well, it is one with using StreamYard versus Zoom, because that's a very good comparison to do. When you go to the second tier in StreamYard, which is $25 a month, the powered by StreamYard logo disappears.
Yeah, exactly.
And you get so many more goodies for such a low price.
Yeah.
And one thing and Anne-Marie has said this many times, because she used Zoom until she discovered StreamYard. It's crashed a lot. So StreamYard is very reliable. It's almost indestructible.
Yeah, I find that too. Yeah, it's been very stable. Yeah.
Whereas Zoom often for Anne-Marie.
I haven't had any problems with Zoom. I have had problems with BeLive where, it just kind of suddenly drops or it stops recording, or there's been quite a few issues with that, and that's maybe 4 is a bit generous, but 4 stars out of 5. But it is somewhat like there's like that anticipation that it might fail, and even though I've done like over 100 plus episodes, it's like, okay, I hope I make it through this one.
It's hard to imagine going back to it though, isn't it? Because StreamYard's so far superior, and it's a very similar price point.
Yeah, it is. All right. So number 4, we had Sarjeet Johal all the way from the US as well. And we went to StreamYard plus Periscope and Facebook. What was the main topic we talked about there?
Well, I think the really powerful topic there was that Periscope is a thing, because Zoom refuses to add it. Refuses. I've asked them many times, like DM'd them. And so Periscope, which syncs to Twitter, it's probably where we started doing the Periscopes on our show, the previous 3 we did. But once you discover that you can add Periscope to the mix, then suddenly you've got all of my Twitter followers and everyone's Twitter followers, because Periscope automatically syncs to Twitter, automatically. So, you're getting another 2 sites with just a click of a button. And why wouldn't you if you're pretty active on Twitter? So Periscope itself is quite popular, but not really a thing anymore. But the fact that it adds to Twitter and it's inside and the link keeps building, I think it's unbeatable. Have you found yourself sort of gravitating towards it now that it's in the feed, or
No, but I appreciate your enthusiasm for Periscope, Keith.
There it is. Okay, well, that's a very good answer. That's a very diplomatic answer. The thing that I love about Periscope, because it's a Twitter product, I love Twitter.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. It's your platform. Twitter's your platform, right? Yeah. So well, why shouldn't you?
Well, the thing that's very inspiring is that Twitter now has a schedule ahead feature. We haven't chatted about in this show. It's not really the domain of this show, but Twitter now has a schedule ahead feature, which, and right on the bottom click, it just looks like a little calendar tab. So what I've done every other day other than show day is I've done a replay of the other shows at 11 o'clock on every other day to show that we're building we've done 9 shows. We're building a sort of a backlog of shows now. And we've got 9 of them in total. And every day at 9 o'clock, I play the Periscope link. Now, the thing that's great about Periscope, it's unbeatable about Periscope, is that as soon as you put that link in, it picks up the original feed with the original number. So you're not starting again. Like when you add a video to LinkedIn or you add a video to Twitter, you're starting from 0 again. And you have to wait for there's a little bit of momentum and then some people watch it and then you get the stats eventually once the momentum builds. But with Periscope, I tweeted something at 11 o'clock today. All of the previous views are listed there. So it's cumulative.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So it's a lovely little brand builder. So my gut feeling, even if for no other reason, Periscope links to Twitter, so you may as well. Why not?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. No, absolutely. And that's part A. That's live streaming ABC, right? Where's your audience? And you need to be where your audience is. So that's cool. And that's what you need as a tool that actually helps you get in contact with them directly.
Yeah.
I've been playing with Zoom as well in the background. And one of the things that we had as the criteria was what's called speaker view. So
yes.
So as you mentioned, it's really important for being able to take the recording because you get that enlarged image. Like right now, I'm the enlarged image because I'm talking. It's an automated feature in Zoom, which is pretty. Sometimes it's helpful, sometimes it's not. If somebody sneezes, then they become the speaker view, or if they're eating their chips, or typing, they get shown. But you can also have the gallery view as well, which is one of the more traditional ones.
What sort of option
quickly?
Let's play with this. What sort of options do you now have for the actual look of Zoom as you're streaming it? What can we do to make this look visually appealing?
0. You can switch between speaker view or gallery view.
Okay.
I'm assuming that's the broadcast. Let me just.
Now look, I'm looking at it now.
So that's what's broadcasting is the gallery view as well. And depending on how many people, you can rearrange it. You can add different pages, but that's it. Like I said, you can't add any overlays. You can't add any titles to say, hey, this is live streaming Decoded, pre-episode 10 kind of thing. You can't do that. You've got a chat box, but nobody can see those visuals unless they're actually in it. And that was the fun thing that we wanted to do. Number 10 was that with something like Zoom, we can actually invite people in. So we're going to have all the guests that we've had previously back in as the panel, but we're also inviting everybody else who wants to come and watch and have an opportunity to talk with them directly with our guests or ask questions about live streaming or whatever. Like they're able to do that. They'll be in the session with us on Zoom. And to me, that's very powerful. Like that's like, next stage networking in terms of what we have done and what we have to do now as well. Considering all the lockdowns. So that's a fantastic way of sort of interacting with our guests and with Keith and myself and that sort of thing, answering questions. So everybody's going to get a chance to ask some questions. So
it's really interesting you say that because a big shout out to Linda in Connecticut. We had planned weeks ago, that we would do 10 shows and that would be it. And then Linda had this really cool idea because it's DIY marketing month right now in June. She had this really cool idea. Well, why don't we do an encore show, like a little bit of an add-on right at the end? Because there's so much to this that really we're not done yet. And so Linda came up with this really cool phrase that live streaming is the new networking, because we all know about networking. We've all been into the city. And we've all got on the train. And
What, you don't network out in the country, Keith?
Well, okay. I mean, if you live in the country
just
town,
kidding.
no, good point. If you live in a country town like Gosford, which is where LinkedIn Local started. I don't know if you know that story. Is it Gosford, Coffs Harbour? Do you know the girl from LinkedIn Local?
Oh, no, I've heard of her. Yeah.
She started it from a country town. I think it was Coffs Harbour. Might have been the Gosford.
Oh, okay, cool.
And she just had the idea that if you're going to meet in person, why don't we? No, sorry, if you're going to meet online, why don't we make an attempt to meet at the local cafe? And she coined this phrase, LinkedIn Local. It's been a sort of phenomenon.
It has. It's worldwide. Like,
it is worldwide.
You go to a city, and that's what I use to connect with people. It's like around the world, because you can know that there's more than likely a LinkedIn Live. Not every city, but most of them have it. So,
and it's outside of Australia, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's like it's transcended.
Cool. Yeah.
So, Linda coined the phrase, live streaming is the new networking. So imagine if we had 100 people on a call on Zoom, which is great. Which we can. But then we streamed it to another 100 people. And I want to shout out to my friend Erica in Jamaica, because I've been talking about this for years. When I got asked to speak in Jamaica, I said no because I didn't want to fly there. 27 hours of my life in the air. I'm never getting that back.
That's one way.
That's one way. And then got to come back. So we did a Zoom. We actually used Adobe Connect. And using this exact analogy, I was in my office here in Melbourne at 12:30 at night. There was 50 people in the room in a physical location with a screen in a hall. And there was 50 people around the world in a chat room chatting to each other from Connecticut, from Nigeria, from Azerbaijan, from Iran. And when I saw that in operation, I thought, this is the future that I want to be part of. I didn't even fly to Jamaica, but I met 100 people that day, 100 people that day. And I didn't even leave my house. I didn't even have to fly anywhere. I didn't even have to go into the city. And now we've been sort of forced to do this. And no one would have advocated that is a good thing. But now that we've been forced to do it, we're starting to embrace some of this technology, maybe a little bit earlier on than we might have. Are you finding
a lot? We're able to utilize it, because it gave us a reason, right? Look, let's be honest, it's been around for a while. I mean, I've been using Zoom since, I don't know, 2011, 2012. It's been a while. This tech has been around for a while, but we didn't really have a good reason to use it. Like, I would do it for meetings and sessions and workshops and all that kind of stuff. So I've kind of, been part of that, but not everybody needs to, right? But now it's a really good reason. It's a really good reason why, as you said, you can now connect, remotely from anywhere around the world. And it's fascinating that we can do that. And that's why we decided to do Zoom on this, episode number 10, is because we can connect directly. We can get people into the Zoom meeting, and then we can also broadcast to, multiple channels. And in Restream, they have up to 30 different channels that you can broadcast to. Not that you'd necessarily do that, because you need to, again, go where your audience is. But
well, I think the biggest power.
Yeah.
The biggest power with Zoom, the biggest power, apart from the fact that it's 1080p, is that StreamYard and even Ecamm, you can have a maximum of 5 guests. Well, we've done 9 shows, which means that some of the people that have come on can't come on the last show. We can't have them all on. So we thought that if we could have at least all of the people from the previous shows, 9 and us, it's 11, then this is a glorious little family.
Yeah, we can have 100 people, 100 guests.
Yeah. So I think if we can get this to work, this might be our new default.
No, for sure.
Now that you've got it to work, you've done it. It's not going to be as hard next time, is it?
Yay, me.
And
I'll be honest, Keith, a lot of it was because you didn't demand, but you really wanted Periscope to work. So it's like, okay, how do we get Periscope to work? And I've gone over it in my head like hundreds of times. It's like, how do we get Periscope to work? Okay, how do we get Periscope to work? So you've kind of been that driving force. And then it's like, and then suddenly it's the realization. It's like, oh yeah, it's right there. Let me try this. I think this is how you can do it. Oh, okay. Away we go. So it's been a fun learning experience. who else do we have? So number 5. That's when we went with LinkedIn Live, as we call Worth the Wait with Anne-Marie Cross from Australia. So she broadcast live from her LinkedIn Live profile, which I might add. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Which I might add, I don't have access to yet.
Neither do you. What are you thinking? Are you still going to wait? You still got your hand up? Are you going to try a 5th time?
Well, Sarjeet said he's going to, see what he can do. He's going to twist some arms and see if he can get us connected. So that would be fantastic if he could do that. But LinkedIn Live, they kind of missed the boat. I'll be completely honest. They had this great tool and they talked a lot about it. But guess what? They've limited the access to it. And to me, like, I don't know, if I see a LinkedIn Live, like I sometimes it's like I couldn't be bothered kind of thing. Or maybe I'm just bitter.
Let me ask you a question. Are you the sort of guy that would wait at a new nightclub in a line?
Not really. I would probably go to another place or start a party somewhere else. Yeah.
I'm happy to try it. But don't make me wait for like 20 minutes. Don't make me wait for 2 years.
But it's been, first off, like it launched in the US and Canada, or maybe it was just the US. I don't know, like a couple of years ago, like I think 3 years ago. And then it finally maybe it was 2. And then it finally made its way over to Australia, like about this time last year. So it took them a year to get it into Australia. And there's a handful of people that both you and I know that do LinkedIn Lives, and they're great shows. Don't get me wrong. It's a great platform, but why would you restrict access to that? If you actually want your content or people to use that LinkedIn Live feature, why wouldn't you sort of give people that ability to do it? Plus, like I said, I've been doing live streaming for over 3 years. I've been doing podcasts for like 5 years. So it's not like I'm just kind of getting started. So maybe it's because I'm an old white man.
Well, let's play this out. It's June 2020. I applied for a link this week.
Good. Well, let's
see how long it takes me to get an answer, yay or nay.
June 16th, 2020.
Let's see how long it takes them to get back to me.
There's a lot of, not upset, but a lot of people are, it's not just me that's kind of saying this too, right? Like you see a post on Facebook about LinkedIn Live and, people are like, well, I didn't get it. And it's like, yeah, well, I didn't get it either. So I don't know, maybe they have a strategy to this. I don't know. I mean, they are owned by Microsoft, they've got Skype, they've got Teams, they've got all this other stuff. So maybe it's not a priority. It's because not that hard. Because
one of the things that Skype has and Microsoft Teams have is this really lovely background blur feature.
Yeah.
And how hard would it be to sync up Microsoft Teams with LinkedIn Live? I mean, there must be a guy in the office, probably in the CAF, that could do that. I could probably do it.
Yeah. Well, sometimes that's the problem, is that it's right in front of your face and you don't actually see that. Because can you imagine that power combination of Skype, Teams, and LinkedIn? Like, it's all there. All the pieces are there. It's just a matter. I mean, obviously some programming is involved, but even LinkedIn Live doesn't use their own proprietary broadcasting. They only allow third party like StreamYard and a few others. So they're not even doing the heavy lifting. They're just opening up a window to say, here, put your feed in here and we'll show it on LinkedIn. So they're not actually doing anything very complicated.
I didn't realize this. Let me pull apart what you just said there. So you can't simply push a button on LinkedIn itself and go live. You have to go through StreamYard.
Correct. Yes. You need a third-party app like StreamYard to be able to do that.
And StreamYard's the only one, isn't it?
No, there's a few. You can do it on Restream now. I've seen a few others popping up, but again, unless you can actually do anything, it's not going to work. So
BeLive doesn't work, does it?
No, BeLive is not connected to LinkedIn, or it wasn't. I haven't used it in a couple of months, but
it's almost like they don't want you to use it. I can't understand it.
Yeah, and it's so easy because they want people to, their number one goal is to keep people on LinkedIn to enjoy, content. And it's been said, I don't know how true the rumors are, that if you put in a link to a site or a page or a post outside of LinkedIn, that ranks lower. So it's not going to be seen by as many people. So if you're using content within LinkedIn with LinkedIn Live, you're actually keeping people on LinkedIn for a lot longer time. And that's a good thing for LinkedIn, right? That's what they want. Do some
research on this. I might ask some people who have got it and some people who haven't got it if they know why this is so hard.
Yeah.
It seems disproportionately hard for me to get my head around why you can't do it.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's enough for LinkedIn Live. We did quite a good show on that. And it was a really good, Anne-Marie did it, and also my friend Doug in Vancouver. It was a really
that's right. Yeah. Sorry, I forgot about Doug. Yeah.
It was a really robust show.
Yeah.
And then part 6, that was hilarious, wasn't it?
Yeah, Restream with Purpose with Christina Garnett from the US. And that was, the plan was Restream to Facebook, Periscope, and I don't remember if we started to use Eventbrite, but Restream crashed. It didn't work. So it took us a while to reconnect things, and finally we got it going about 30 minutes later. And if I might say, that's something that you need to, when you do create sort of business live streams, is that have a plan B. Know that, you know what, it may not work 100% of the time. So can you actually survive past that? And we did. I'm not sure what the issue was, but at the end of the day, I had StreamYard ready to go, and I was about to click the button to say, okay, let's just transfer over to StreamYard. I've got everything all set up. Away we go. And it's like, try one more time. We really want to see if Restream can work with guests. We clicked it, and it loaded it and started to broadcast. So we were okay. But it took a lot of troubleshooting. And luckily, we had a patient guest.
Well, to be fair on Restream, because we're now trying it here and it has come good. To be fair on Restream originally started its life as a re-streaming platform. You know, you've got your site and you re-stream it. You send it to other places. But partially as a result of us hassling them, but also other people, they tried a guest feature. And we got it like within about a week of it being invented. And we were one of the first people to try it, to be absolutely fair on that experiment. So you can have up to 4 people in the call, but it didn't work.
Yeah.
And the lag between me speaking and my mouth movement was about 30 seconds.
Yeah, it was horrendous.
It's really monkey on overdrive. But, you know, the idea was that we were trying it, and we were happy to try it because as a business case, we don't want an important business in the city to go on live and just make it up. We want them to know what they're doing and to absolutely gun it. And that's our job. Our job is to do all this testing. So that particular episode, which is not one of our best, was a very cool experiment. Christina spoke really well, even though her voice didn't sync to her image. And she gave a lot of great advice. She talked a lot in that episode about Instagram Live, which I think to me was a complete mystery. And even at that time, there was some discussion about them saving Instagrams because they are famous for ephemeral content. There's content that goes away in 24 hours, which is about my least favorite thing in the whole world other than tax and mowing the lawn. You know, what are your thoughts on ephemeral content? Can you see the point of it?
Again, it's live streaming ABC, right? If your audience is doing that, then if that's what they want, then yeah, absolutely do that. If I do a live on Instagram, like I do download it as well, so that I can keep it as sort of either just a record or sort of to go through some snippets later on. So I think we're for a business case, unless you're something like entertainment or, you know, something related to that genre, like, yeah, the content that comes and goes, that's totally fine. I don't personally see it as useful for businesses, because one of the principles that we say is that you need to repurpose this content.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that opportunity, then, well, it's not wasted time. It's just time that, you know, you've created this work, so why not, you know, reuse it and redo it? It's no different than syndications on television. Like, you can still watch Seinfeld, right?
And Star Trek
20 years ago, and Star Trek from like 40 years ago, and that's syndication, and that's because they saved it.
Well, right? Look, I'll give you a really cool example. This happened today. There was a really cool show on Channel 10 here called Thank God You're Here. I don't know if you ever saw it, Impro. And the basic idea was they started with that one line. It's like most people's nightmare. You walk into a room, you got one line, thank God you're here, and then you're off. Nothing else is scripted. Impro. That show ran for about 3 years in about, I don't know, 2015. Now they're replaying that as a catch-up TV.
Okay.
Now I get that. You know, you've gone to all that trouble to create the content. Why just play it once? What a waste.
Yeah.
Anyway, right. Christina talked a great deal about that in part 6, and she's awesome. Hopefully she can come on this week. It's very late in the US. This show is very late, and there's a lot going on there, so some of my buddies can't make it. But that was a good show. And then part 7, we tried Ecamm.
Yeah.
how was that for you? Because you ran it.
Yeah, that was that. Honestly, my MacBook didn't survive. We started because the problem with Ecamm is that it's actually an add-on to Skype. Not that's a bad thing, but I've been using Skype Ecamm call recorder for years with my podcast, so I knew it was there. And then I added the Ecamm, which is the live streaming bolt-on kind of thing. But anyway, you have to connect guests through Skype. So we had to test this. It's like, okay, how does it actually import guests? So we had Anna all set up from the US. She has her beautiful studio, like she's running a top-rated live stream show out of the US. Had everybody ready, guests loaded. Everybody's going, we're going live, and then poof, everybody disappeared. So that in this case, it's like, okay, well, because I've got the console, I have to like reload everything. And so reload Ecamm, reload Skype, get everybody back on and that sort of thing. So the first part was like, oh my goodness, what happened? Look, I think it was a hardware issue. I really don't know. It potentially could be from my end, or could it just, yeah, it's like 6+ years. So it normally seems to do a fairly decent job. But
what's the use case for Ecamm to make it worth all that effort? Why would you?
Well, Ecamm fundamentally moves you to that next level of capabilities in terms of how do you interact with the visuals, the overlays. Can you have scenes, right? So you can create a whole scene with overlays in certain positions, and then you just reset the scene, and then it's ready to go. And I've actually been able to connect it to an app on the iPad or phone. So you just basically touch a button and it goes to whichever scene you've set up in advance. So it's very easy. It's very fluid. You can move the visuals on demand.
It has that cool feature where you can use your iPad to teach you.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And that too is that you can use, well, actually that came from Zoom, is where you can actually import the feed from a note type software on an app and actually bring that into your visual as well. So that's a pretty powerful tool in terms of workshop. So fundamentally, it allows you to do some creativity with your show. So it doesn't look all the same. Like most StreamYard shows all look like a StreamYard show. Live shows look like a BeLive show kind of thing.
There is a StreamYard look, isn't there?
There is, yeah, which is fine. Don't get me wrong, that's okay. But if you're kind of going to that next level of how do I actually make my show look significantly different, that's the one, because you can again add different transitions, you can add different feeds, you can have different changes of your overlays and that sort of thing. So it's really fascinating that way.
So that's the use case for Ecamm.
Yeah, exactly. So Skype, and again they had the limit of six guests total, or 6 people total as well.
But they actually can, if you've got the capabilities, they can actually stream in 4K.
Yeah, that was I think that's one of the features too, is that Ecamm is a quality product. So that this is kind of broadcast level. So this is in a Johari window. This is the one that's getting you up to a really quality show. Anywhere, anytime, it saves it, it can schedule it, and it can do a lot of different things. So I was quite impressed. Yeah, as long as you have a Mac. So unfortunately, that's the only caveat. All right, so then part number 8, how to repurpose your live stream. We brought in Linda Ray all the way from East Coast, US, and we use StreamYard for that. Reuse it or lose it.
That was an amazing show, because what we did after the 7th episode, I realized that we hadn't tested everything, but we tested all the major configurations. We tried most of the available configurations for live streaming. You can technically live stream with WebEx, but it's not very easy to do, and we didn't see that there was a really strong use case for that. You can do it though. So after 7 episodes, we thought, okay, we're repeating ourselves now. Let's go deeper. And Linda from Connecticut said, well, look, I've just started Restream. I've just started StreamYard. And I just love the idea that we can reuse the material. And why would you? And how do you do it? So I think that's one of the things that fundamentally defines this show. We repurpose everything, don't we? We've got stuff on YouTube. We've got little snippets. We're putting it on LinkedIn. We're turning it into the blogs. We're getting the transcript.
And IGTV and Instagram.
That's right. And you're trying it on Instagram. What was your take on the repurposing thing? Do you think it's really important, or am I over-exaggerating that?
No, not at all. And that's why, for a business, once you create this content, reuse it. It doesn't mean there is a certain dateability to it. right? Where it has to be fairly current, but that depends on the industry, right? And it's very important to kind of build all this reserved content that you can use at any time in any place to kind of help build your audience as well. So that's the number one thing that you need to look at, is how are you actually using this content again, right? And just because you broadcast it once doesn't mean that everybody in your audience group saw it. So that gives other people an opportunity to see it or reflect on it, or, oh yeah, I remember that, maybe I'll watch a little bit further or something like that. So it doesn't mean that you're whatever, you don't have enough content. It means that you've got a lot of content. And so I'd love you to kind of watch this and see if that kind of fits with what you're doing as well. So it's a point of building a connection. There's a thing called the Google Zero Moment of Truth, right? Where Google looked, this is going back like 10 years, but Google looked at the point that it takes to actually get people to purchase from somebody or to trust them so that they can carry out a transaction or that sort of thing. It takes 7 hours, 11 touch points, or 4 channels for that to happen. So 7 hours is a lot of time. So if you're sending them to a video to watch or to watch again, or, hey, I didn't even know that you released this, a year ago, that's okay. People are getting to know you and they're getting to like you and trust you as well. So
the thing that's really interesting there is because most people, when they're inside their own mind, are thinking, oh, well, I've done that. I mean, people are sick of it. But the point is, not everyone's seen it.
Yeah.
And not everyone's seen it on the site they're in. Like, I love Twitter, but people might want to see that stuff on IGTV, or they might prefer to watch it on YouTube, or they might come around to seeing it on LinkedIn when I do a rerun. So not everyone's seen it at the time. And one thing I'm really interested to hear from you, because you've tried both, how does StreamYard and Zoom now compare in the repurposing stakes? Is it easy to get the recording on StreamYard? Is it easy to get the recording on Zoom? Do they compare favorably?
Yeah, I would say that those are probably two of the easiest ones to get recording. The nice thing about Zoom is that it actually records on Zoom, and it records in high quality as well. So you can just basically go into your panel and you can either save it locally, which is fine, or you can save it in the cloud as well and just download it. It does keep it there, I think. Something like Be Live as well, it records it automatically, and it records it as both an audio file and a video file. So
that's
you can
becoming
download
increasingly popular now, isn't it?
Yeah, so you can then just repurpose it as, as additional piece of content as a podcast. Be Live keeps yours there forever, though. I mean, for as long as I've been using it, they haven't deleted an episode. StreamYard only keeps it there for 7 days. So if you haven't downloaded it, you're kind of stuck. You might have to go on to the channel that you broadcast on and see if you can download it. You should be able to do that on Facebook or YouTube or whatever, is download that video. But it records it in an audio, in a video on StreamYard, but it only keeps it there for 7 days.
Well, let me pick up what you just said there, because we have a default position just in case people want to get started. What we decided, because there's a million choices, we decided that we would stream live to Facebook and Periscope on the day, and that I take the video and then put it onto YouTube the next day. That's the format that I've developed. Now that just works for me. But the power of Facebook is that in an environment where anything else fails, we can always get the recording from Facebook. If everything fails, StreamYard loses the file, it doesn't record to Zoom, something happens, we've always been able to get the file at maybe a reduced rate. But is that true? You can download the file from Facebook?
Yeah, honestly, it's always going to be there. So it's like goes into your archives of whatever page or profile that you're using. So it's always there.
Isn't it?
Yeah, but we did notice there is there is a huge size difference in those files. And quality, we've noticed some degradation in terms of, a Facebook file is usually less quality than
compress it a bit, don't they?
Yeah, they compress it or something, but it's smaller, but there is a little bit of loss in the visuals as well. All right, so part number 9, that was the last one that we did last week, and wow, that was a cool episode. Hey, keeping it real, we called it. Yeah, being authentic, building trust with your live streams, being yourself. And we had Emery Cross, who's been like spectacularly supportive, and she's been on 3 shows, and she'll be again on hopefully number 10. And we also had Gail Murphy from California, who's been doing PR and media training for celebrities and rock stars for like years, and it was so cool to have her talk about that stuff.
Well, it's very comforting for me to know that someone as experienced as Gail could see the value in what we're doing, because she's been in the industry for years. She's seen inside it. And she was commenting that really the idea never changes. You've got to be yourself. You've got to be authentic. But you've also got to be a little bit humble. She was talking about the idea that if you're a guest on someone else's show, they're doing you a favour. And you have to be humble about that.
Yeah.
You know? And so we both know people that have got content that believe they should be on our shows.
You owe it to me to put you on your show.
You know, I've got a book out, so therefore, you know, I should come on your show, and you're the one that's winning.
Yeah.
And it was a fantastic show because Anne-Marie does a lot of shows and she has guests, and Gail is often a guest or interviews people and teaches people to be interviewed. It was a phenomenal show. What did you think of it?
Oh yeah, no, it was so cool because she wasn't giving any names, right? But she's not a name dropper, which is also pretty cool because a lot of people are. But she was giving examples of how she trained people to answer questions and what to talk about and how to talk about it, so that people do come to trust you and to like you and get to know you a little bit, because it is important, right? This is a huge medium, and if you're not connecting, if you're not actually communicating, then you're missing the whole point here. It's about your audience, it's about building blocks, but again, it's about your content, of how do you actually create that content, but also how do you deliver the content, right? You can have the best content in the world. It's like it could be a New York Times bestseller 10 times over, but unless you can deliver that content effectively, it's not going to happen.
Well, Gail said a couple of really interesting things. She said that she's worked with clients that even though their book is unbelievable, they're not suitable for media. And several people would ring them and say, look, this person has amazing content, but they're just not ready for mass consumption. They just don't have the mindset, the ethos. I've written a book, I've written a book, and therefore, why wouldn't you have me on your show? Well, okay, I get asked this all the time, and why should I have you on my show? It's got to be a two-way flow, and the show was really powerful from that point of view, that you've got to keep it real, you've got to be yourself, but you've got to be humble. Yeah. And it was just an incredibly enlightening show from that point of view. The other thing that I wanted to talk about on that show, which I did throughout the show, was that we are into software, so StreamYard, Ecamm, Zoom, Restream. You can grab your phone and use TikTok and Instagram, and you can make live streams on the fly. And we talked about that. But for me, the idea of being able to repurpose a show and make it professional is where we're positioning this idea. Yeah. I'm not going to teach you to make TikTok videos in your pajamas, because I'm never going to do that. I'm never going to use TikTok, I'm thinking.
Unless you're selling pajamas.
but I can see why that's important, and I can see it's a popular trend. Yeah. But I don't think, am I right? It's not the sort of flavor of this show, is it?
No, not at all. And again, we're looking at it from the average, the majority of businesses out there, how they can use these tools and how they can get them to, build that audience, build the building blocks, and create some amazing content as well. So that's the message that we have is, look, if you want to do that's perfectly fine. And if that works for your business, go for it. But you still need to understand the fundamentals of how do you do it? Where do you do it? Can you do it? How do you, what's important and what's not? So even if you do want to do it in your pajamas, because you are selling pajamas, let's just go to that step. Then there still are some specific things that you need to be aware of to make it work for you, so that in a month or after 2 episodes, you're still doing it, right? And that's important, is that continuity and consistency. That's been amazing, Keith. Originally I thought, Keith, let's test this out. We'll take like 15 minutes. But
there's a lot to it. And look, this is just a ramble. We might not reuse this, but what I wanted to say here is we're using Zoom and Restream. And in spite of the fact that Zoom will not, in big capital letters, add Periscope to its pantheon of sites you can stream to, we've worked around that, and now we've used Zoom and we're on Periscope. I've never seen that done before. No one's doing that.
Exactly. And so
what
we've
are we
got
talking about next week? What are we talking about?
Yeah. So on Thursday and 2 days from now, we're going to be talking about part 10. So again, we've talked about a little bit. We're going to be bringing the guests in. We're going to be having a Zoom session, and you can also watch it live as well on your favorite channel. Tell us about the show, Keith.
Well, I've called that show To Stream or Not to Stream. Yeah. Because, and we've talked about this throughout this episode, there's a lot of fear about streaming. And if I was in this position again, and I'd never done it before, the first question I would ask is, well, what's the use case? Why would I do it? So we're absolutely going to pull apart the idea of, is it better to pre-record your videos and put them on YouTube, say? Or is it better to have the courage and go live? And there's use cases for both. I mean, the engagement is undoubtedly better on live streaming if you've got the courage to do it. Yeah. And there's no rework. You make a video on YouTube, you got to load it, and then you got to tag it,
and then
you got to promote it. And it's so boring. Am I right?
Oh, 100%. It is a huge extra piece of work. I mean, Hani Mura, one of our guests, Repurpose.io, does some of that, right? It allows you to connect those pieces so that when you do a live broadcast, it'll save it to your G drive, it'll upload to YouTube, or it'll send it somewhere to a private group or whatever. So it does allow you to do that, which is cool. But that's, again, comes down to repurpose. That's your content. And if you're not repurposing it, you're not delivering, that full value.
That's the main value proposition of live, or do you think it's the interaction, the fact that we can have comments, the fact that people
for sure. Yeah. Well, it is absolutely. It's interactive too. It's creating that engagement, which is so different than, say, from traditional television, where if you have a live show, like, it's not really live. It just means they're filming it. Whereas, what they could have done, because we've had this COVID thing since March or February, is some of the existing shows, like the ones that could be so interactive and so engaging, like in Australia, MasterChef or My Kitchen Rules or something like that, where it's that show in itself is an engaging show. But what if you could take that to the next level, where you're doing it on a Zoom session and people are watching and they're asking questions, and obviously you need some kind of moderation. But the point is that you could sort of create that engagement, which is, again, back to my point, was very, very important. The live shows are fantastic when you have comments and when people are, bantering back and forth amongst the comments, but also, with the guests and the host as well. And that's been a lot of fun.
But look, I want to talk about something you may not have heard of. This is unbelievable. We've talked a lot about he's not my mate, but a guy I know, very, very cool rock legend called Ash Grunwell. He's on his second concert now. And he's using Ecamm, and he's sending the file to YouTube, charges $20, 500 people turn up, and they watch him on their screen dance in their pajamas, right? And it's a Friday night or a Saturday night, and he's used to gigging, and he's getting a bit itchy, and he'd rather be gigging, but he can't, so he's been very creative. But you might not know this, but on Sunday morning, 7 a.m., Sunday morning, our time, we're going to get up and we're going to watch this really cool band from Sacramento at 2 p.m. Pacific time, Papa Roach. And they've been going 20 years, and it's the 20th anniversary, I think, their first album. And they're gonna do this concert for $20 American, about $25 Australian. Is that right? Whatever.
Yeah,
it is.
A little bit more, but yeah.
So for $20 US, we're going to log in at 7 a.m. and we're going to watch this band, full on band, as if we're there, because they've been to Australia. And we've seen them play. And we can't see them play, so we're actually going to wake up early and do the time zone thing. And we're so excited. Like, we're going to have an early night Saturday night. We're going to rock out at 7 a.m. I've already tested the windows. So I've put the television on full, and I've gone out to the letterbox, and you can only just hear the sound of the television in the street when it's on full, because it's going to be 7 a.m., right? On a Sunday. We don't want the police to come. But people are being very, very, very creative. Papa Roach can't come to Australia. It's prohibited to travel in and out of Australia. So they're being creative. They're having these events at 2 p.m. their time, $20. And this is going to happen more. Don't you think that's exciting?
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's going to be the focus of part 10 too is how do you actually do that? And can we distill everything that we've talked about to sort of 5 key aspects and what is really important to being able to create that live stream? And that's a perfect example, right? Where you're physically limited to what you can do. So how is that going to stop you from doing business? Shouldn't, right? It doesn't have to. It can if you let it. So we've got some great questions. So come and bring your questions that you might have about live streaming. We're going to have some amazing guests here. We're going to be talking about those sort of case studies of people really kicking it well with live streaming as well. So I want to try something before we go off, but if for people who are watching, if you go to bit.ly/decoded10, then you'll be able to register for Thursday shows, which is something that again is a shortcoming in terms of using the Zoom platform, is that I have to say it, right?
You can't type it out like you had in the other ones?
No, I can't. So that's where you have to add in a virtual cam.
Okay.
But before we sign off, I just want to switch. I know Restream can be quite sensitive, so I'm going to switch to the live studio, and I'm going to test that there are actually comments coming through, or if we can actually see comments. So if we drop off of Restream, we'll still be on Zoom anyway. So just stand by here, if that even works. So we'll see, because with Restream has separate levels as well. And sometimes if you try something else while it's running, that it kind of stops working. So what does that show? That actually opens up the live studio, which I don't think it actually does, but did it disconnect?
It still seems to be running on Periscope okay.
Is it? Oh, okay. Is there a delay though?
There is a couple of seconds delay between what we're saying and what plays on Periscope, even though it's synced on Periscope itself.
Yeah,
because a couple of seconds delay.
Because in the live studio on Restream, you can add overlays and you can do this and that.
Oh, you can. So it can look a little bit like StreamYard.
Correct, but looks like it's a different element of Restream. So there's the restreaming part, there's the live studio part, and then there's the scheduler. So they actually have 3 components here, and it doesn't look like they're connected at all. So,
okay.
But if I go back into destinations, I'm just wondering if it'll reconnect. It looks like it might be creating a new session, which is interesting. Oh, or maybe it's the same one. Anyway, we'll have to go back and see how it actually looks. Did it start a new session on Periscope that you can tell?
Your page. Let's see. No, I don't
and these,
so.
No? Okay. Well, these are some interesting things that we might need to look at as well. Periscope says it's still running, but I don't know if when I again exited out of the destinations page and changed to the studio, did it actually continue to broadcast?
How important do you think, I'm going to ask you this because I've got a very specific opinion, but how important do you think is the idea of being adding, first of all, noticing the comments, and second of all, adding them into the stream while you're live? Would you agree it's a very vital part of the live stream environment?
Yeah, it certainly can be. And I guess that's the difference too between, Zoom, where Zoom can actually, people can talk, right? It's like you just come on screen and away you go, or you have your whatever moderator allowing you to talk or something like that. But the point is that you're able to engage directly. Whereas, regular live streaming, it's just the comments. So you kind of have to respond to the comments. The fun part is that you can show them the people's comments onto the screen as well, which then some people get a giggle out of that.
For instance, with Ash,
additional discussion. Yeah,
a very good example of why I love this idea is Ash is playing, one of his songs, and in the middle of his song, he's going, "Hey, Bill," and he feeds it into the song. He actually makes a way of actually making the comment rhyme with his next line.
Oh, cool.
He's so clever. Like this guy, just a genius. He plays guitar, he sings, he plays drums with his feet. Yeah. And he's live, and then there's comments, and he's commenting on them.
Oh, wow,
he's just a super muso. And what that means is that if you're live on that stream, you can tell it's not a recording. You can tell that you're really involved.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit of a pity that we can't access the comments, but that's only a very minor inconvenience compared to all of the other advantages. Because we've kicked a few goals today. We've
definitely.
We've broadcast in 1080p. We've broadcast Zoom to Periscope. Never seen that done before. And now we can have up to 100 guests. We can record it in HD, and we did the test, so we're all set for a Thursday, aren't we?
Yeah.